We're live.
Okay, good morning. This is Roger Royce. I'm a partner with the international law firm of Haynes & Boone, also the founder of the AgTech Innovation Network and a proud participant and moderator for F50's Global Summit. And today it is my privilege to introduce a speaker, a presenter here on global food security. Jaleh Daie is an American scientist, educator, and entrepreneur. She's been a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and at Rutgers. She was the first woman to serve on the U.S. Space Foundation Board of Directors and has been inducted into the Women in Technology International Hall of Fame. Today, she is the managing partner at Aurora Equity, an investment company in Palo Alto, California, and she is very active in investing in food tech and ag tech. And Jaleh is here with us today to talk about global food security. So with that, Jaleh, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Roger, for inviting me to join and speak today. I wish it was a different circumstance so we could be face-to-face and enjoy each other's company, but we have to do. I have not had a chance to work with F50 group, but I looked it up. Looks like a very interesting group, and so I'm very grateful for the invitation. And as Roger said, I will be talking about global food security, or lack thereof, global food insecurity, and how we might build a more resilient food system. I'm trying to move this. Okay. And when I talk about food security, I really mean to include nutrition as well. We need to equally emphasize nutrition, because when it comes to our well-being, it's not just enough to have sufficient calories. The quality of those calories do matter, and we need to pay close attention to what we eat. So throughout my conversation, when I say food security, I really include nutrition as well. So when in the business of food security, especially at the global level, we have to deal with some interesting dichotomies and paradoxes. One of which is the fact that we have about 800 million people that are going hungry every day, meaning that they are not getting the minimum calories required per day. And of those 800 million, about 265 million people are on the verge of starvation. And this is the number that was just put out by the UN World Food Program just last month. And the head of the World Food Program called it a crisis of biblical proportions. So we have a very serious issue to address. And then on the other hand, when you look at the total global population, about 2 billion people are overfed. We get more than calories that we need per day, but we are mostly malnourished. And the malnourishment shows in obesity, in chronic diseases that you're all familiar with, and mostly they are metabolic disorders and illnesses. And I'm not going to go through them because you're all familiar with those. So let's talk about some mega trends that you see all over the world. They're not unique to any place. So obviously right now we are going through a pandemic and health crisis. And we are seeing the last few days the manifestation of social gaps and inequities that we have seen, whether in developed or undeveloped world. They're everywhere, social inequities. And we've known about climate change for years and worried about it. But then when you look at the global world population, it's increasing at the rapid pace, especially the bulging of the middle class. Because the middle class is expanding rapidly, there's huge demand for protein. So we need to think about the consequences of all of this. And these are some of the topics that I would like to go over today. Okay, so this expansion of the middle class is a really net result of Asia, especially Asia rising. There are other parts of the world that are rising, but the bulk of it is because of rise in Asia. And as the middle class in Asia increases, there's huge demand for protein. So let's look at some numbers. By 2050, we expect that we would be required to feed about 10 billion people. That means we have to produce about 70% more food. In just about 10 years, by 2030, we're going to have to make 50% more protein. And that's, as I said, because the expansion in the middle class. And just in Asia Pacific alone, the size of the middle class will be 5 times that of Europe and 10 times that of North America. These are mind-boggling numbers that we need to deal with and deal in an equitable way. Okay, so I think the forefront of our mind is the pandemic. And our world changed. About 2-3 months ago, our world changed. And now, after 2-3 months, we are seeing some new emerging trends. One of the things we are noticing is the need for some decentralization and deglobalization, mostly because we have become inwardly focused, and mostly because the supply chains are breaking, food supply chains are broken. And another major trend we are seeing is heightened awareness about our health and well-being. We are seeing incredible unemployment rates. Right now in the US it's 15%, but it's expected to go to 20 or even up to 20% unemployment. But a positive thing that is happening is the general public, not the biologists like myself, not the generally highly educated people in this audience, but the general public is beginning to understand the power of biology and great things that we can accomplish using and harnessing biology. And also another positive thing is food for medicine or food as medicine has always been a concept that some of us have followed. It's, from ancient Greeks to today, but suddenly it's taking a whole new meaning, what I call food as medicine 2.0. And then amazingly, in the span of 5 weeks, we leapfrogged and became so digital. Look at it, what we are doing today. We used to get together in a big hotel or big conference center, and now look, we are doing it. We pulled digitalization almost 5 years in 5 weeks. To me, that is so amazing. So lots of e-commerce came along in food and ag because of this pulling of this digitalization forward. Okay, and again, continuing talking about the post-pandemic issues and environment and landscape, what is vexing to me and many people that are thinking about these things is there are multiple macro and micro issues and cross currents that are colliding with each other, making a lot of things very, very complex. And as I said before, we have to deal with dichotomies, with bifurcations, with paradoxes, you name it. We have to deal with those. But then, here I go again, the power of biology. I want to spend the rest of the time today in how we can harness the power of technology to innovate in agtech, food tech, and biotech. Okay, so you may ask, let's go back a little bit and see how was the AgFood Tech environment landscape in 2019. I can only say the answer to that question is hot, hot, hot. What happened was the valuations were crazy. You could see unicorns just coming up every week, every month. Angels were falling all over each other to invest and not miss the boat. FOMO, fear of missing out. And the result was that almost $20 billion was invested in agtech and food tech. That includes also biotech for plants and livestock. And this almost $20 billion, amazingly, is 40 times what we invested in 2013, which was the kickoff year for agtech and food tech. Before 2013, the term agtech and food tech really did not exist. So we have been around for now 7 years. Before that, we called it biotech, we called it nutraceuticals, we called it cosmeceuticals. It's now all agtech and food tech, and biotech falls into that. Okay, so then you want to know what's going on today. I would say happily that I think the ag-food tech scene remains very strong and investment environment remains quite attractive. I looked at the numbers for Q1 2020. They are about 20% higher than Q1 2019, year over year. But we don't know. We have to wait and see how it goes in Q2 and Q3. I do expect some caution, some slower moves, smaller rounds, more triage of your company, portfolio companies to make sure the successful, sustainable ones are protected. But here's why I think 2020, the agtech food would remain strong. There are several reasons. One, food and agriculture are essential. We cannot sort of say, oh, I'm going to cut back on this. They are defensive sector. When we become cautious, investment-wise, financial, or in any way, we sort of go in a defensive mode. And so this fits perfectly in a defensive mentality. And very importantly, food and ag are non-correlated assets in a non-correlated asset class. So that is also positive aspect. And then to layer that on top of the fact that there are just the right kind of investment for this environment, there are tremendous amount of low-hanging fruit still. We've been around for 7 years now, but there are tremendous opportunity for quick exit, low-hanging fruits, sort of not very capital expense intensive. And when you look at the spectrum of the food and ag, there are sectors or pieces that are maturing, and then there are areas that are ready to harvest. So my expectation is that we would have healthy M&A activity as well. Big food corporations would step up and big ag companies would step up to buy these smaller startups. So I'm quite optimistic, although I do realize and respect the cautionary tales. Okay, so as I said, we are still early and lots of low-hanging fruits. I would still say we are only in the third inning, so there is no fear of missing, don't have any fear of missing out. You can jump in and invest and be sure that we have a long runway. And as I said, the trigger happened in 2013. A unicorn was born, Climate Corporation, which was acquired by Monsanto for about $1 billion. So that's when the VCs began to pay attention. They saw, oh, there is a unicorn in agriculture, we better look into it. So here we are. Okay, so now let me switch to another topic that I'm sure as a group that is interested in capital, you would want to hear something from me. I just looked at a McKinsey report that came out last week, May 2020, and the title is The Bio Revolution. That's the title of their report. And in that, one nugget is that they're saying with the current technologies, nothing new, no innovation, just applying the current technology we have today, up to 60% of all global physical input can be rooted in biology. To me, that is music to my ear. I'm a biologist. I've been saying things like this without having the backing of McKinsey. So now I have something to fall on. And so you can be assured that there are great opportunities in this big bioeconomy. You can invest in health, agriculture, food, wellness, biomaterials. There are opportunities along the entire value chain. So, okay, I want to get a little bit more specific. I know you want a little bit more meat on the bone rather than saying there is a bioeconomy. As you remember, I talked about some emerging trends that we are beginning to see, and I wanted to offer some thoughts about opportunities that are aligned with those trends that I mentioned. Okay, the trend of deglobalization means there's going to be onshoring and distributed systems. Any technology or tool that would help this would be attractive. What I'm hearing, and then the biggest thing that you personally observe by seeing empty meat shelves, that we are having a broken supply chain right now. So what I hear from big CEOs of big companies like Cargill, I was listening to Cargill's CEO, and he was talking about just in case model. They're thinking about not just in time, that is no longer enough. They're thinking just in case models. For example, Costco is now having its own meat packing plants because they don't want to rely on Cargill. They want to have their own meat packing plants. Logistics management tools are going to be very important. Enterprise software that addresses logistics would be very much needed. And because we don't want to rely on faraway food supplies, locally grown food is going to be important. So vertical farming can become very attractive. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we have the heightened health awareness. Consumers are becoming health and price conscious. Unemployment and health means that I want a healthy food, but I can't afford to pay a lot. So we want clean, local traceable food. We are thinking food as medicine. We want functional foods and ingredients. For example, I want you to show me with some technology that this food improves my immune system so I can fight COVID-19 in a better way and not contract it so easily. And then the best part that I love is the public has come to appreciate biology no other time. So biotech, gene editing, technologies like CRISPR, microbiomes for soil, animal, plants, these are all going to be very important tools. And my inclination is to think, and I fully expect that actually, because I talk to people in different countries, I think almost all governments, including Europeans, are going to ease regulation for these gene editing and CRISPR technologies, which means that would speed up the process from technology to the market. Okay, some more trends. As I mentioned, the high employment, very strange bifurcations are happening. Consumers have to think about discretionary versus essential spending. So guess which way they're going to go. But the paradox here that we are beginning to see inflationary pressure in essentials and deflationary pressure in discretionary spending. So what do we need? What solutions and opportunities do we need? Value add farm inputs like effective, low-cost, biologically based chemicals and water management tools to reduce our costs. But one area that is really in need of big thinking, real innovation breakthroughs is come up with new business models. To just sell corn as a commodity is not going to cut it anymore. We need to think differently, think big and differently. And then another paradox that goes, you put juxtapose high unemployment versus shortages of labor in food and ag. And so that's really a strange paradox. But that means we're going to need robotics and automation across many pieces of the supply food chain, all the way from farm robotics to robots who would serve food in restaurants or would help you in the grocery aisle. And then consumers are obviously, we are becoming obsessed. I myself included, we are becoming obsessed about touchless. No minimal points of contact. So again, robotics and automation are the tools that we're going to need. And as I mentioned, this fast pulling forward of digitalization, huge jump in e-commerce for food and agriculture, and direct to consumer is becoming a new big time business model. So investment in these areas are all going to be promising. And most of these are not capital intensive, and the horizon to exits are relatively short. So that's part of the attractiveness of food and ag tech investment arena. Okay, one part of this area that is personally important to me is food as medicine. I work with groups that invest in this area, so I like to focus on it, help other people look at food as medicine and improve their own health. So when you do this, so what are the key areas in this general broad umbrella subject? So let's start with local and regional food. Vertical farming, as I mentioned before, some of them are becoming profitable. Most of them are close to becoming profitable. So there is room for that. Direct-to-consumer business models are going to be exciting and rewarding. And then consumers are thinking about, when you think about health, you want sustainable agriculture, organics, regenerative agriculture. So in that category, subcategories like biologics, using natural biological products as pesticides and such, and using biomics for soil health, animal health, plant health, all of that, very exciting. And now we have got to a point where we are actually getting very interesting tools to make nutrition a personalized kind of thing. We all have different genetic backgrounds, and so what is going to be really critical to your health may not be critical to mine. So personalized nutrition, investment opportunities there. And then some people don't want to eat highly processed food. They want clean, traditional, old way food. So they want pasture-raised chicken, beef, or eggs. There is big money going into this. I am close to some groups that exclusively invest in these areas. Very exciting, profitable, highly profitable at this point, because they can command a premium for their products. And then you all know about alternative proteins, whether it's plant-based like the Impossible meats, Impossible Foods, or Beyond Meats. These are plant-based using pea protein or soybean protein. Whether it's culture meats that it's in infancy, you don't see it at scale yet, but they're on their way, or even insects. John Chambers, the former chairman of Cisco, is very keen on insects. So some very big thought leaders are thinking about advancing insect technology and production. And then one last piece is people want functional ingredients. I want to have high protein chocolate bar. So I want functional ingredients in these bars that are high protein, high vitamin A, or high vitamin D, whatever. So there are companies that are making a specific ingredients with attributable function. Okay, so let me wrap up this section by quoting a very famous thought leader, Michael Pollan, in this area. He's an author, activist, food thought leader, and among the books he's written is The Omnivore's Dilemma. In that, the thrust of this book is food as medicine. And so to wrap the whole book in just a few words, he would say, and I totally follow his prescription. He says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And the two parts are easy to understand. And what does he mean by when he said eat food? We eat food, right? No, not all food is created equal. What he means is this: he means real food, unprocessed, unadulterated food. He wants us to avoid too much processed food, and I subscribe deeply to that thought process and recommendation. Okay, so I did paint a grim picture of some of the bad things that are happening, and I did also strike the positive note. But let me sort of come to the closure by saying I am totally confident that we will find our way out of this crisis. But it means that if we want to do that fast and effectively, we need to harness the great power of biology and put that power behind innovating for food and ag technology and biotechnology. And with that, I want to thank you, the audience, and Roger Royce and F50 group for allowing me to share my thoughts. And good morning.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jaleh, for that presentation. Certainly is a lot of food for thought there. As we discuss food as medicine, this is Roger Royce with Haynes & Boone, international law firm, and your moderator for our series of panels on food as health tech. Thank you, F50, and we will see you on the next panel.